Hello everyone and welcome to this week's ExtendScript QuickTip tutorial. In this one, I'm going to be showing you how to make this AE snow generator script that essentially uses a bunch of tiny solids to generate snow in your composition. Now this function is already written out. All that's left to do is adjust the input settings, like how many flakes you want, the size, and things like that. So let's just go ahead and go over it and how to manipulate it to create different snow looks. So quickly dissecting the project, you can check it out on GitHub. Link will be in the description down below. It'll tell you everything you need in here, but we're going to be going over it a little bit more in depth just in this quick tip tutorial. Essentially, all you have to do is take the script I provided, and to run it, to create the composition with all the snow in it, all you need to do is say generate snow. You need to input the number of particles, the flake variation, the speed variation, and the depth. This is equivalent to how many solids will be created, the size variation, the speed variation or the distance in the keyframes it will be creating, as well as the Z depth information. And then it will also give you recommended ranges. Anywhere from 1 to 1,000 particles is generally pretty good. You can generate more, but as seen in this example where I have 2,500, it can create a lot more problems. So there are some limitations to how many you can create, of course, just because of solids, but if you have a very good computer, maybe you can increase those numbers. The flake variation, again, is just the size. So this is a percentage difference, plus or minus the original solid size of how big the flakes are going to be. This will create some larger flakes and smaller ones, as you can see. And then the speed variation will adjust how many frames offset, essentially, that the flakes will be randomized. So sometimes they'll be 25 frames slower or a whole second, sometimes they'll be a little bit faster. And this will just create this nice parallaxing overlap effect that makes it look like everything's pretty randomized. There's more than just one direction of wind, there's other elements interacting. And lastly, the depth is anywhere from 0 to 10,000. This is the actual Z depth it will randomize to. So if you put anywhere from that, it will push it back in Z space and create a nice effect. And then now that we're looking at the actual code of the script, all you have to do to run it again is say generate snow, which is the name of our function. And we're going to enclose this in a begin and end undo group, which will allow us to quickly press Ctrl Z and undo everything we just did. Very briefly, I'll go over how this actually all works if you're curious, and you can go in and change anything if you'd like. But essentially, the first thing it does is creates a composition called the snow comp. We're going to assume it's 1080p and these settings. We'll then create a couple of variables, one to store all of our flake layers, one to have the randomization for the scale, speed, and Z depth. We're basically going to take the original and add these values to them. Then we'll create a camera because we're going to assume that there's Z depth involved, so we need it to be a 3D scene. And then for the number of particles you put in, which again was anywhere from 100 to 1,000-ish, for each one of those, it's going to randomize the scale, speed, and Z depth between 0 and the number you give it. So each layer is going to have a different scale, speed, and Z depth randomization. And then what we're going to do is inside of our flakes array, we're going to push in a new solid layer, just a white solid layer with the flake name and the number of flake it is. Then it's just going to have the snow comp height and width and the duration of it. So very simple, just creating a flake. And then now we're going to use these randomized values. First, create a 3D layer out of it. So what we're going to do essentially is take that randomized scale value we had, and we're going to add it to 0.5, which is the basically percentage of a tiny pixel on the screen. And then we're going to multiply that by 100th to get the percentage of it. So just doing some math to calculate the random scale. And then for the position, we're going to have it a little bit more complicated in that we're going to use set values at times to create keyframes rather than just set the static value. So what we're going to actually do is have a keyframe at time 0 for every single one of these, and then we're going to randomize the second keyframe time, because again we had a speed randomization, so we're going to take 9 seconds and add that speed, anywhere between 9 seconds and 9 seconds plus our speed random. So we're going to have a keyframe at 0 seconds, then going all the way forward to 9 seconds at least, or 9 seconds plus or minus our randomized speed. Then the same thing with the Y, we're going to randomize it at the beginning and end as well. And then for the Z depth, we're going to then include our randomization of our Z so that we can push each layer in a different Z position and give it some nice depth. So you can just mess around with all of the input settings and see how it changes things. It'll obviously take different amounts of time to generate depending on how many flakes you select, and every time you should get a nice different result. And you can even start to mess around with things like creating wind or other effects to make it look more realistic. But that's going to do it for this tutorial, guys. I hope you enjoyed. That's how you can use our free snow generator. Make sure you check it out on GitHub. The download again is in the description. Leave the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment if you have any questions down below. And of course, I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you in the next one.